People in Ethiopia are being barred from social media in order to lock down protests over a massive church divide. This has caused massive problems for the prime minister, who has been able to keep a fairly peaceful relationship with the church during his administration. But the protests have become bloody, and reports are that over 30 people have been killed. It comes after a coup was staged inside the Ethiopian Orthodox Church by what I'm going to for now called breakaway bishops. They formed their own assembly because they said that they had been denied the use of their language inside the church for some time, and took over leadership and excommunicated church leaders. This caused a massive uprising, made worse when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said that both sides have a valid point. Many took this to mean that the government supports the church uprising. Now, experts say there's been a lack of interest in this internationally, and it's a really important story, so we brought in an expert to explain. My guest today is Sanate Sine. She's a researcher and the director of a genocide prevention organization in Ethiopia. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Natali, for having me here. In terms of what you've just, briefed earlier, it is true. There seemed to be a fairly okay relationship since the reform with this prime minister, the reformed government took over 4 years ago. But ever since, different institutions have been meddled with by the government. So even if it seemed like a church divide, it was actually an imposter group that is propped up by the government itself. And this you can.
So
This
can I
can
just
be.
clarify what you're saying? So you're saying these breakaway bishops, for lack of a better term, because I want to be sensitive and not label them anything that I don't understand completely. So you're saying that they were propped up by the Ahmed government?
Exactly. There are different indicators. We have officers on the ground feeding us information. As soon as this new group ordained their own patriarch outside the canon of the church itself without any procedure, protection was removed from the official Orthodox Church officials. There were a special protection given to this group. They were also helped by federal and also Oromo region security forces to seize church grounds. And the other issue is that the major reason that this group gives is that they have been there was language-based discrimination, but the reality is the church, just like any religion, has been evangelizing using different many languages, the ethnic languages of the country, as well as even foreign languages. So they have been actually jailing people who served in Oromiya and other languages even before this debacle has started. So this is definitely an agenda by the government to control these religious institutions. Similar issue happened with the Islamic Council, where the government meddled and placed the person that they wanted into the leadership. So this is a similar a pattern that we see government trying to control people through the institutions that they trust.
Now, you wrote up a summary of this, and you said that when the breakaway bishops were coming towards the church, the Orthodox Church rang bells, which people in this area knew to mean come and protect the church. And when they came, they were fired upon. Is that an accurate description?
That is an accurate description. This is an ages-long tradition where churches ring the bell whenever there is, an attack. It could be on the country, it could be on the area, but usually people just flock, usually unprotected, empty-handed, and we have seen also other instances where security officials were actually physically abusing priests, and it is within their teaching that they cannot fight back, they cannot defend themselves. So that's how horrific the situation is, and this is just really one chapter in the very sad situation in the country going on. Usually when such non-state actors who usually at the background are propped up by the government, cause issue, the government comes in and acts as if they're the mediator, and they play both sides. This both sidism has been really part of the problem that made it very difficult for victims to get justice. Similar to what's going on right now, this is an attack on the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, worshippers. There has been an ongoing ethnic-based attack, specifically against ethnic Amaras and other groups as well. And similarly, the government always comes up with such both sidism argument that they're trying to find extremists on both sides and stop this, which makes it very difficult to get accountability and justice.
Well, you even, I think, posited that some of the snipers were either government supported or government actors. So why would the prime minister allow his government to do this when he's otherwise had a peaceful relationship with the church?
That's a very good question, Natalie, because these are the things that are never been asked, or the prime minister usually doesn't give press conferences. It's been a long time since the reform. There is no direct accountability. Usually we get one-way speeches. So these are the
Mm-hmm.
things that should be asked, because if you are not meddling in this, and these are two specific parts of the church, then there would be no reason for security forces. These are taxpayer supported institutions, both regional and federal forces,
Yeah.
to shoot at civilians. So there hasn't been any direct explanation why security forces have been firing on unarmed civilians.
And this seems like maybe the most obvious question, which makes me feel stupid to ask it, but I will anyway. If the breakaway bishops had sincere goal to worship in a different language, why wouldn't they be able to coexist or start their own sect of orthodoxy? Why do they need to usurp? I don't know if you have an answer, but it seems the most obvious. Like, why not coexistence, especially in a church?
No, that is actually a very good question, because there were times when in the past, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is a conservative church, and when followers want to feel like reforming, there was something called a Tahadso church. Like, so people who felt like they need a reform, they broke away and set up their own church. This is there is the constitution allows religious freedom, so people can actually set up their own sect if they need to. This is not the real issue behind the debacle. However, what was needed was the government. This is a government-propped group that are required to take over the actual church so that they can control the masses. And we do know that because some of these bishops, we've now learned, that have been really coerced into this. So they've been trying to apologize and get back to the to the church, but they were barred in many different ways, being blackmailed, being held without their will. So we're seeing this now, that that's not the case. And the other quick indicator that this is also not the case is that they have been really jailing, especially at the Oromo regional government, they have been jailing Ethiopian Orthodox Church priests that serve the people in Oromia, in the Oromo language.
Hmm.
So it really defies the purpose if you're jailing people who are already giving that service and claim that you're not given that service.
Right, exactly. Now, this weekend, both sides were scheduled to hold competing protests, but the government then removed internet access in order to tamp down those protests. So, did they in fact not happen? And a follow-up question to that, I'll let you answer them together. How large are both sides supporting the breakaway and supporting the church?
Thank you. So you're right. A rally was called by the church leadership, by the synod, and that was on a condition that the church, if the government doesn't get the church grounds protected, if they don't stop persecuting their priests and the congregation in general, and it was all conditions related to the current issue, and in a very interesting way that the other group also called a rally, and I think that's made so that they can use it as a pretext to bar the
Hmm.
rally, because then they would say, okay, this is an issue of
It's
security,
dangerous,
because
right?
violence might come, yeah. But then immediately the security task force that has the defense, the police, and the intelligence services announced that they would not allow the rally. Now, between this, something happened. The prime minister asked to meet the synod. The synod went to the to his office, and there were a lot of promises given. So because of that, the church, being responsible and trying to avoid bloodshed, postponed the rally, not canceled it, but postponed, because this happened before. The government promises something. It could be political groups, civic groups, or religious institutions. They cancel the rally they called, and the momentum gets cooled down. But then the government goes back on their word. So because of that, now they postponed it, but they didn't cancel it. So people are attentively waiting for direction from the synod. In terms of followers, I mean, it's amazing to me that the international, especially the mainstream media, didn't cover this, because a few months back, because of the war in the north, whatever it is in Ethiopia used to be covered. But it seems all the other, issue that we're facing in the south has not, or in the center, has not been covered. But basically, it has been sea of people. Like, even for normal church services, people just really felt attacked. They wanted to protect their church, so people went out in hundreds of thousands. So the scene was really amazing. Nowhere near that kind of following for the imposter group.
Oh, okay. All right. Because, yeah, you can't tell from looking at images because the media tells you that people are supporting both sides. They looked like, especially the ones I saw with the candles, fairly peaceful. So you just have to wonder. Now, this weekend, the prime minister has said, for one of the most direct, I guess, blame that he has assigned to the United States, said that the United States is propping up the rebels in Tigray. And I know that these are unrelated issues, but this then becomes a story of competing government intervention, where there's government intervention in the church, and then there's foreign influence in the region for, what is called a genocide and what is sometimes not called a genocide. Do you see these two things as related, or are they two separate stories that we should talk about separately, which I'm fine to do?
No, I mean, there is some kind of relationship to what happens in Ethiopia currently, because at the end of the day, at the center of it is always this government, this administration, who was trusted by the people 4 years ago, who has completely turned that upside down, has been really lying to the people. This specific accusation that you just told me now, I mean, 4 years ago, I mean, 2 years ago, when the war started, people might have maybe believed it, but it went behind the people. There was no transparency when they started, those peace deal negotiations with the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and everything was one-sided. Even in the precondition for the peace deal, they said forces to leave the Tigray region, but whereas there are still TPLF forces in the Amara region, in the WAG area, and in Afar region, in Zone 2 area, they're still putting people under siege. There's still starvation. So it seems like they're already back dealing with the TPLF, the government itself. They have a series of meetings that are not transparent for the people, that are being done. Used to be outside the country, but now inside the country, week after week. So I don't think that holds water. And on top of that, there is always this issue that people are dying hundreds, right now about 150, averaging 150 a week in the past 6 months, in the west of Ethiopia, and also in the south of Ethiopia, in the Amara region and Oromo region. And all this is because of the Oromo Liberation, forces, army, that is, that is kind of attached with the Oromo Liberation Front, that is legally operating from Addis Ababa, that has cabinet ministers that work with the prime minister, but at the same time the army is supposed to be separate. So this no the world has not covered this part as well, and thousands have died because of this. It's very hard to pin everything on foreign countries when actually the issue is our government itself, and that doesn't mean that other countries might not play their hand based on their national interest.
Right. I understand that it's, of course, going to be much more complicated than that. So I appreciate your reaction to that, because it's just not as easy as like, who is the bad guy here, right? Which is why I wanted to be sensitive to this story, but also understand what's going on when you see a persecution of a religion and freedom of communication, and people, just having their phones turned off. I read somewhere that, requests for VPNs went up like 1,400% in Ethiopia so that they could get on the internet. And that's a whole other component. So thank you for joining me to break these things down. I really, really appreciate it. Where can we find you to continue to follow your work?
Oh, thank you very much. So we have a volunteer-based organization, Genocide Prevention in Ethiopia, and we do give out very frequent updates, atrocity reports, red alerts, and early warnings at GP Ethiopia. So that is the handle for Twitter, and the website and other information can be found there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for your time. It was really a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Natali. Thank you for having me.
I mean, that's a website you can get behind, like an anti-genocide website. Like,
I am against that.
You want to support something in your life? Like, yeah, how about we support no genocide? That'd be a good place for us to start. The fact that we even have to have this conversation in 2023 is disgusting.
Yeah. When people ask me my politics at a party, that's where I start.
Yeah. I start with no genocide. So any country that supports genocide, which is actively killing people in war zones, we're against that on this show. So thank you for her, and a great interview as well. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.